Chapter 80, Unfolding. Sarah felt fulfilled that day, and had her romantic moment with Hyun. She realized that he was still attracted to her, and couldn't resist her flirtations. Hyun still felt excited about Sarah and reciprocated her feelings, and expressive body language. He made her think that he was still the same Hyun, who willingly gave in to her affection and aggressiveness. After leaving Sarah, Hyun questioned himself. Why was it so difficult for him to avoid Sarah? Was he still in love with Sarah? Or was he just tempted because of her saucy flirtations? He walked briskly to his van and told Junie to speed off, fighting these emotions away from his mind, or he would go crazy. Meanwhile, during Detective Rowan's investigation into Wheeler's almost death-threatening accident, a new development came up. One of his men, Detective Devon, had been painstakingly examining over the video on CCTV until he caught the culprit forcibly pushing Wheeler's wheelchair. He submitted to Detective Rowan his findings, using his laptop, and thus narrated, "I was tracing this fellow in a black shirt and hood, until I realized we missed tracking his footsteps before he started the accident. Going back to the entrance lobby, I somehow captured this figure entering the hospital, where this culprit was wearing a black long-sleeved shirt, with a black face mask, and clung to his arm was a black jacket. As I zoomed in further, the coat had a hood hanging down from his arm. Looking closer, the man had short hair, like a bobby cut style worn by females. At first, I didn't give much attention to it, since men could also have that hairstyle. Still, as the culprit got closer to the camera, I noticed that his wristwatch was that of a female." The other two detectives and Detective Rowan ran to Devon's laptop, watched the video closely on the monitor, and agreed it was a female. Devon continued, "I continued tracking her moves on other videos. There she was heading up to the elevator. And after leaving the elevator, she coincidentally met Mrs. Riel with the nurse aide. This female stepped back to give way to them. She followed behind conspicuously as Mrs. Riel was pushed inside the elevator. She moved to the inner side of the elevator as other passengers came in, so she was unnoticeable. Then she followed suit until Mrs. Riel was brought to the park. The nurse aide positioned her to safer ground so she won't block the way." Then Devon pointed the culprit using his pen on the monitor, and continued, "She stood behind the tree, while the nurse aide was positioning Mrs. Wheeler's wheelchair facing the sun. Then, she checked the security lock, moved it for assurance that it was secured, and rechecked, afterwards walked toward the tree, and then sat on the bench, browsing her mobile phone. After 5 minutes, encircling with his pen the timestamp below the video, after the nurse aide sat, while browsing on her smartphone, she moved close to the wheelchair, pretending to tie her shoelace. Then looked around, and noticed that no one was watching her. She unlocked the brakes, and forcibly pushed the wheelchair." Devon paused, and couldn't wait for their reaction. He continued, "I traced her steps, and as she walked back inside the hospital, she took off her coat. Then, he stopped the video, stared at his colleagues, grinned, and waited for their comments. His colleagues were excited. Come on, Devon, finish it. For Christ's sake." With complete confidence, Devon clicked the video and said, "Voila!" It was a female, indeed, and wasn't she a beauty? Detective Rowan looked closely at the image of the female antagonist, who stood by the nurse station, pretending to be waiting for someone, then moved going out of the hospital. As if nothing happened. Detective Rowan was jittery and excitedly instructed Devon to have his findings printed, so he could present them to Mr. Han Hyun-ki. One detective commented, "Is it possible that Mr. Han knew this lady? She could be an obsessed lover, dumped by the CEO because he married Mrs. Riel, or it could be a love-struck silent admirer of Mr. Han. We must consider these plots because this lady here was dangerous and had to kill whoever came between her man." In the meantime, at the bank, Riel was entertaining a client, and while assisting the client in filling up the form, she stood to get the client's photos recopied. And as she was walking close to the copying machine, she suddenly felt like throwing up. She dashed to the restroom, and one of her office mates noticed her pale face. She followed her, showing concern about Wheeler's sudden strange behavior. Riel was vomiting hard, as if her innards were coming from her mouth. She was sweating, her forehead dripping with perspiration, and she was cringing. Her office mate tried to soothe her back. When she saw yellow fluid coming out as she vomited, she got fearful and ran to their manager for assistance. Mrs. Echeverria got tensed, and seeing Wheeler's head in the water closet, looked in and exclaimed, "Riel is pregnant." She kept on tapping and rubbing Wheeler's back as she continued vomiting. Her office mate was excitedly elated and took some paper towels and handed them to Riel. "Oh my God, Riel, you're pregnant?" Her office mate was slightly leaping with joy and clapping, while Mrs. Echeverria felt happy for her that she hugged Riel. "You will soon be a mother, Riel. You have to get checked up for your morning sickness, so it won't get worse," Mrs. Echeverria advised. Riel was in a state of shock and surprise. Having been mesmerized, she said, "Please, for now, let's just keep this between us until I announce this to my husband," Mrs. Echeverria and her office mate promised. "Our lips are sealed." Riel fixed herself, and Mrs. Echeverria felt concerned. "Are you all right now? You could go home now, if you don't feel well," Mrs. Echeverria suggested. "I could hold on, ma'am," Riel promptly replied. "What made you throw up? Was there something that triggered your sense of smell, which usually was the first thing a conceiving woman would do?" Mrs. Echeverria asked. "I'm not sure. I could not exactly pinpoint, but when I stood to have this photo recopied, She paused, her brows met, trying to make a recall, then said, "I smelled something awful when I came close to yes. It was Mimi's perfume scent that triggered my nose. As I passed behind her," Mrs. Echeverria sighed, smiled, and said, "From now on, wear a face mask. Let us go to my office, and I'll give you one to wear now." Riel had mixed emotions after learning she was pregnant. She recalled Sarah being pregnant too. She thought of Hyun-ki becoming a father of two, as if he got twins. She was in this mindset when Natalie tapped her shoulder and shook her head, reminding her it was lunchtime. Natalie and Riel were about to leave their desk when Hyun-ki came in. "Hello, Miss Universe. Could I invite you for lunch?" Hyun offered. Natalie got thrilled by his remark on Riel, that she giggled. Oh Mr. CEO. I would appreciate it if you would bring me to your yacht and have a cruise while we lunch up the deck," Riel teased. "Your wish is my command." He took her hand and walked out of the bank. Riel turned to Natalie and said, "Sorry, I'll make it up tomorrow." Natalie waved her hands and gave a flying kiss. Once inside the Maybach van, Hyun noticed Riel with a face mask on. "What exactly is the face mask for?" Hyun curiously asked. "Oh? I threw up a while ago because of pregnancy," Riel replied casually. Hyun didn't get the cue, but Junie got startled. "Well, whoever got, what? You're pregnant?" Hyun almost got off his seat and asked again. You're pregnant? Babe, you're kidding me, right? Tell me, you're kidding." Riel was pissed off. She ranted and raved at Hyun-ki, squinted for not taking her seriously. "What? Because Sarah was pregnant, so I do not have the right to be pregnant? Is that what you're implying at? You do not want me to be pregnant?" No, babe, I did not say that, and I got surprised. Any husband would be surprised. That means I would be fathering 2 kids with 1 stone. Isn't that obvious?" Riel became cranky. She was about to shed tears out of irritation, squinting at Hyun-ki's remarks, and said, "Obviously. It was clear that you impregnated 2 women with 1 stone. Do you think I would like that?" "Junie, stop the car." Junie got startled and was about to stop, when Hyun-ki said no. Riel was steaming hot with anger, and spoke forcefully, "I will open this car if you don't stop." Junie got nervous and made a sudden break. Hyun-ki grabbed Riel's arm and said, "Do not be childish, Riel. Come on, let us talk about this at home. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone." She hurriedly got off the car and started to walk. "Junie, drive on. Follow her," and so Junie drove the car at a slow rate, following Riel. Hyun-ki opened the window and begged Riel, "Please, babe. Ride with me. Let us talk." Riel, with chin up and pursed lips, continued on walking. "I'll get off. Junie, keep following us." So, Hyun walked behind Riel at a distant pace, his hands in his pockets, as if he was strolling, giving Riel time to cool down. And while walking, Riel was not focused on her steps, and she almost stumbled, and it was good Hyun was fast enough to catch her. Hyun-ki held her close and whispered, "If you don't stop walking, I have no choice but to carry you back to the van." Riel whispered forcefully, "Don't you dare." So he suddenly scooped her in his arms. Junie quickly opened the automatic sliding door, and Hyun carried her back to the van. Unmindful of their surroundings, some people got their attention and observed them walking far from each other while, at the same time, an expensive luxurious vehicle followed slowly. Then as she almost stumbled, he quickly caught her The people watching them felt awe at how he caught her, and all clapped in unison as he carried her to their Maybach van. Ooh, oh, how romantic, others would say, and others cheered and giddy. Then Junie sped the car to avoid more attention from onlookers. Riel calmed down and whispered, "Let me take my seat now, please." Hyun looked at her lovingly and said, "I love you, Riel. Please don't doubt my feelings for you. You are my only love. I feel excited about our baby in your womb, and that baby will be my only child, my heir, and my life." Riel looked at Hyun pleasantly, then asked, "What about Sarah's baby?" "It is also your child." Hyun then he furrowed and said blankly, "I would send her back to Korea with the baby and give the child a trust fund. That's all I could do. But to father the child, I couldn't do that. My child with you is all that mattered to me, Riel. You and our child are all that mattered to me." Then he embraced Riel tightly, and Riel was so pleased, she couldn't hold her tears and emotions at that moment. Hyun's revelation made her more determined to make their child's world safe at all costs. Hyun brought Riel home to make her rest for the day. After lunch, Hyun returned to work to come home early to be with Riel. He was so lighthearted when he got a call. Who could have made that call to Hyunki?